welcome to everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you're based. My name is Ciel Vaughan and I work with Share Screen Africa. We facilitate virtual events to bring experts into the classroom from all over Africa. So welcome to this morning's event, which is in the series Exploring East Africa's Wildlife Economy, which we are running in collaboration with the African Wildlife Economies Institute. Today's event is Dialogue 4, discussing wild carbon. And I wanted to say a very big welcome to our speakers and our facilitator today. Thank you so much for joining, and we really appreciate you giving up your time. And we're very much looking forward to this exciting and interesting discussion. So thank you very much. And with that, I will hand over to our facilitator, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that opening for the intro. My name is Michael O'Brien Onyeka. I'm the Executive Vice President at Nature for Justice, an international NGO. But the focus is not on me today, it's on our panel members who will be taking us through very interesting aspects of what we want to do today. To clarify, this particular event today is a dialogue, not endless presentations, but an engagement between myself and the panel members with a big option of members of the audience to ask questions and engage the panel members as well. So it is a dialogue around the management of wild plants such as mangroves for carbon. As you know, the carbon sequestrated by ocean and coastal ecosystems, otherwise called blue carbon, is increasingly recognized as a key nature-based solution to global climate change. We are aware that blue carbon ecosystems like mangroves are amongst the most effective carbon sinks on the planet, which makes their degradation very worrying, as their degradation contributes to about 19% of carbon emissions from global deforestation. So today, I have three panel members. But before I introduce them, I want to just say a quick, give you a quick info. One of our panel members, Derrick, unfortunately is not able to join us today because he's on a flight in transit. But we do have an equally competent colleague of his who will be representing him, and that will be Ms. Chawa Zipora, who is a manager nature-based solutions at Ceriops Environmental Organization. Other members of the panel that will be engaging us today would include Ms. Nkamunu Patita, who is the co-founder and the Kenya lead at Earthacre. And then we have Mr. Jerry Mang'ena, who is the executive director at Aqua-Farms organization. So without much ado, and in the interest of time, one more last thing. We have a total of about 1 hour for this engagement. So I'm going to give like 10 minutes maximum initially to each of the panel members I invite to talk. And after that, give 2 minutes for any quick, very quick, immediate observation or question to the presenter, the panel member. And then we move to another panel member for 10 minutes. Once we've gone through the three panel members, we now throw the question open to the floor. I myself might have, will have series of questions also for the panel members, but please, if you have any burning question, please put it through the chat and we will try our best to get it across to the panel members and bring them up as questions. So without much ado, I want to invite Ms. Nkamunu Patita. Like I said, she's the co-founder and Kenya lead at Earthacre. Patita is an impact-driven conservation professional with experience in natural resource conservation, policy lobbying, advocacy, and public engagement. Her work integrates conservation and climate change mitigation in Africa using capacity building, cross-sectoral partnerships, research, and the empowerment of both women and indigenous communities. Patita is a board member of the Kenya Indigenous Women's Council and Friends of Nairobi National Park, and treasurer of the Ati Kapiti Wildlife Conservancies. She's recently completed a master's degree in conservation leadership at the University of Cambridge. So please welcome Ms. Nkamunu Patita with your opening remarks, please.
Thank you very much, Michael. And it's a pleasure to join everybody else in this forum to talk about wild carbon. I think my interest for today is to share the experiences that Indigenous people have had in engagement with carbon projects, especially in Kenya, and also venturing into uncharted waters where communities have in the past not really benefited from the natural resources, the challenges they have gone through over the years of hosting the highest percentage of biodiversity, but not really benefiting from it. And so as we look into carbon projects and how communities can benefit from these projects or even be co-proponents of this project, looking forward to sharing the experiences that I've had for the last about 4 years, what has worked, what is seemingly the challenges we move forward, at least in Kenya and some parts of East Africa, and also to hear experiences from other parts of Africa regarding carbon projects, challenges that they're facing at policy level, implementation of projects, and even as carbon developers, being that I'm a carbon developer myself. So I'm looking forward to sharing these experiences, learning, hearing more, and how to even enrich this process of development of carbon projects that would benefit Indigenous people. So thank you very much, Michael. And those are my brief opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Patita, for that opening remark. Yeah, I think then I will just go ahead and call on the next panel member to do their own opening remark, and that would be Mr. Jerry Mang'ena.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, and thank you so much everyone for making time here. My remarks are all centered around voluntary blue carbon credits and especially how to bring benefits to the community at most. And it's all centered out of the years of experience around ecosystem restoration, especially for mangroves along the coast of Tanzania, and then transition from just ecosystem restoration to conservation and establishment of blue carbon credits. But over the period, we have seen issues around irregularities of the current existing regulations in the space, not being in favor for communities' benefits, and also a great mismatch in the national carbon trading guidelines against existing verification standards across the globe, which makes it difficult for investment, but also make it difficult for also projects to grow and really capitalize and build on community benefits at most. So through the discussion today, I'm really looking forward to discuss with everyone around these matters and others that arise, and share experiences across the members. In addition to that, I just wanted to highlight this, that as we are all looking towards opportunities for growing the carbon credit opportunities for the case of blue carbon with mangrove, we should always keep in mind that there's a very limited for growth, meaning that we cannot expand the coverage of mangrove forest beyond what's naturally has been existing. We can replace what has been lost, but not necessarily expand or introduce more or less like artificial aspects around that, but also limits the investment potential at scale. So the question that I believe that we'll also be able to look around here is how best can we look on blue carbon beyond mangroves, especially in ways in which we can maximize opportunities for the coastal communities. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to engaging with you all throughout the hour.
Thanks so much, Jerry. I should have mentioned at the beginning that Jerry is the co-founder and the executive director of Aqua-Farms organization and a marine biologist from Tanzania. He has 5 years of experience in the community-based activities of fisheries and aquaculture. Most of his work, as you could tease out from his opening remark, is centered on coastal communities on sustainable utilization of the fisheries and aquaculture resources as a means of reducing hunger and poverty and adapting to the changing climate. Jerry is a trained business coach of Climate Launchpad and teaches at the School of Aquatic Sciences and Fisheries Technology of the University of Dar es Salaam. He is also a climate reality leader, a global shaper, and a Nelson Mandela Washington Fellow. So thank you so much, Jerry, for that opening remark. I would then call on our third and final panelist, who is Ms. Chawa Zipora. Chawa Zipora is the manager for nature-based solutions at Ceriops Environmental Organization. She has honed her leadership and management skills through various roles in natural resource organizations, including supervising logging operations, forest extension services, and environmental consulting. Her passion for forestry led her to pursue it as her primary career path, where she excels in roles that promote sustainability within the industry. So please welcome Ms. Chawa Zipora for her opening remarks.
Thank you so much. As you heard, my name is Zipora, and I'm currently working for Ceriops as nature-based solutions manager. And maybe just to add on the introductory remark from the person who introduced me, that I'm also a carbon asset consultant. I've worked on more than 10 projects. Some of it are under verification currently. And there are major issues that we have experienced in our organization while working with the different stakeholders who are involved in the development of carbon project. So I want to just point out that there has been some misconceptions that have somehow affected the current market prices for carbon credits. That includes the blue carbon credits. And it's because of lack of institutional knowledge on carbon and how it operates. And that has been a really major challenge in the carbon market for the past 2 years. But there is opportunity around the globe, and especially in East Africa, because people are interested. They want to know how this whole mechanism operates and how they can tap into that opportunities and be able to actually improve their livelihoods. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to having a very fruitful engagement with the panel to just better understand how well we can forge forward while addressing the key issues that can impact this development of carbon programs. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Zipporah. Thanks so much for that. And now that we've had the opening remarks, I want to ask if any member of the audience has any immediate burning question based on those three opening remarks before I go into my substantive questions to the panelists. If not, then just keep mulling over that and just start typing out your questions in the chat. So my first question is to the three panelists. Please, any one of you could answer. Just as a kind of carbon sequestration 101, what, for those who may not, who are in the audience, who may not fully grasp what this means, can any of you explain to our audience what is carbon sequestration? What does it mean in a layman's language without too many technical jargons?
Yes, certainly I can put it in a very simple way. Carbon sequestration is a process where the available carbon that's in our space is being synced or locked somewhere, that it doesn't go back into the atmosphere and affecting our environment. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Any other person?
Yeah, just to add on what Jerry has explained, unlike us human beings, we take in oxygen and then we breathe out carbon dioxide. I'm trying to use a very simple language here. So
Yeah.
trees take in carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. And in that way, for all of us who are here, who understand how carbon dioxide plays a role in the climate change that we are facing now. So through sequestration and storing of that carbon by these trees, it means that the amount of carbon is being reduced from the atmosphere. And in that way, it's somehow regulating the normal operation of the earthly system. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. Now that we've got that out of the way, I want to ask, so I will direct a question to a particular person, but even if that person answers and any other member of the panel wants to add, please feel free, just bring my attention to that. And if you want to add to something that your colleague has responded to. So my first question is to Patita. According to the 2024 report on voluntary carbon markets, the largest category for credits, carbon credits, is forestry and land use. About 25% of these come from Africa. So my question based on this is, do you see a potential for growing the supply of credits, carbon credits from East Africa? And if so, where are they likely to come from? So this question is to Patita, but any member of the panel, please feel free after Patita has answered. I think we're having a bit of internet connectivity issues with Patita. So Jerry or any member of the panel who wants to jump in?
Yeah, Michael. So if I got the question clearly, is that what are the opportunities for growth on other aspects, or just the forest and land use?
Carbon sequestration from the East Africa perspective, broadly speaking, what are the potential for growing the supply of credits from East Africa? And where are these likely to come from?
So you know, from my perspective, there's the current exploitation of or opportunities that have been tapped on the supply of carbon credit has been so much around RED programs and afforestation programs, but there's a great opportunity of leveraging this on other potential sources, which involve, you know, like active reduction of emissions that are centered on other product producers, you know, like, you know, especially aspect of transportation. You know, everyday movement in East Africa is becoming an important aspect, and there's a great opportunity of, you know, removing or reducing that by going into smart and climate-friendly modes of transportations, and these are like one among the least explored credit supplies at the moment. But also another angle when it comes to the same part of forest and land use, it's all focused on at the moment in most of the like carbon credits are coming from community-based on properties, which are either under village ownership or and very few that are on private ownership. But there's a great swing of small holders who are into tree plantations, wanting to get into carbon trading, but because of the scale, it's like you need to have very large forests to be able to capitalize and make a fortune out of it. So being able to design schemes that would allow smallholder farmers, you know, someone with 50 to 100 hectares, be able to also participate in the industry would play a huge role in terms of increasing the credit supply in the sector. I think, for instance, for Tanzania, it has been one among the barriers for entry to many players, because it comes to a sense like, you know, for a feasible and economically viable a carbon credit project, you have to have at least, you know, at a minimum point, at least 1,000 hectares under conservation. And, you know, that's not an easy thing for an individual or a small community to own. But what if we could design schemes that are able to allow these different, despite are not connected, but different areas that maybe are using the same model of conservation, to be able to together sell their credits as a community, just like the way we're dealing with like agricultural products. Could we package the carbon credits into that format, you know, and sell through, you know, cooperatives of carbon credits and so forth? That's a way that I'm looking at it, and I see it leveraging and helping other people who have space and are willing to get into the industry to increase the carbon credit supply. But unlike now, if you look on the blue carbon aspect itself, unfortunately, it's not very easy, especially if we only look at one product, meaning that the one that comes from the mangroves, because the space for growth of mangrove forest is either to restore towards what has been existing in the past years, which is, for instance, for Tanzania, maybe it's a total restoration of maybe additional 50,000 hectares, and that's like the max cap. And you can like expand those forests beyond that natural setup. So, you know, that's a limiting factor, but it also opens an opportunity of looking at other potential credit supplies, such as seagrasses, which are very still understudied, but also, you know, what are the opportunities for maybe seaweeds to also play part into the carbon credit supply, but it's also still understudied for the case of I can say the world and African in general. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. You touched on quite a lot of things, including you've gone ahead. It's one of the questions I have coming up later. You've started looking at some of the challenges and how we could make things better. Excuse me. Zipporah, oh dear, sorry. Zipporah, any take on the question of do you see potential for the growth of credits in East Africa and where are they likely to come from? But thanks, Jerry, for that very compelling input. Zipporah. And Patita, if you are back, please let us know and I will call on you after Zipporah. Go ahead, Zipporah. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, indeed, there are opportunities. Like what Jerry said, mostly in the market, we have ready projects and air projects, that is afforestation and conservation projects. But then you can easily count the number of afforestation projects compared to conservation projects. One, because developing these programs requires a lot of finances and well-equipped institutional capabilities to develop such programs because they are new, mostly in part of East Africa. People are willing, yes, but they do not have the knowledge and understanding on how to go about these different programs. And also the other aspect is on waste management. We have standards that can guide on how to develop waste management credits. So this could also be another opportunity we can tap into. We also have clean cooking stoves, um, which is some of these opportunities are there, but then people don't know how can we monetize such opportunities to earn credits from. Maybe first thing should be how can we increase advocacy on the importance of carbon credits for the different communities that we are working with, or rather the different stakeholders that we are likely to be involved with in development of these programs. And again, because conservation projects require like really massive lands, and proving additionality sometimes is quite a bit of a challenge, and therefore it requires this project to be developed alongside other standards like CCB or SDVista to just improve on its credibility. And again, this is what discourages most people to venture into these programs. So maybe if we can address the underlying issues, the supply wouldn't be a problem because opportunities are there, but we also have limitations. And these limitations are mostly on the knowledge of carbon and how we can monetize some of these activities to give us credit. So aside from NPS, we can tap into clean cooking and also waste management programs, which can again improve the supply of carbon credits. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Zipporah. Thanks for that. Both of you, you and Jerry, you did answer well the issue of potential, but I think you're burning to discuss and address the challenges facing communities and the generation of carbon credits in East Africa. And I promise you would definitely come to that. But thanks so much for that, for the contribution around the potentials and so on. I just want to check with our technical people. Is Zipporah back? Is Patita back?
Yes, Michael, she's there. You should see her pinned on your screen.
Okay, all right. So Patita, sorry about earlier, technical issues do occur. Do you have a take on this? The question was, do you see a potential for growing the supply of carbon credits in East Africa, and where this likely could come from? You know, is it more from mangroves or reforestation or agroforestry or whatever?
Thanks, Michael. Let me just add on to what my colleagues have said, but let me speak about grasslands, which is what I'm well conversant with. The project I'm doing is grassland, which is other forms of land use. It is possible to increase this in the grasslands because I think there's one aspect that has not really come out very well is that change of tenure system. I think if you look into most parts of East Africa, maybe Kenya and Tanzania, land tenure system has changed, which was from group ownership to individual. And so this means that communities have more control over their resources. And this also is useful in terms of during engagement, FPIC becomes more direct because you're dealing with the direct landowners of these assets or these resources and not groups as previously were. And if the international regulations would capture or recognize the change in tenure systems, this would see an increase in credit supply. Because I think some of the challenges that my colleagues have spoken about is the international regulations sometimes require large-scale carbon projects for them to make sense, or for carbon to be sequestered, or for it to make sense. It's gonna be done in a large scale. But reality is, land tenure system has changed. We've got to adopt and be innovative and adjust to developing projects that would accommodate these changes, so that then this can allow for more people to participate, more communities to participate, and even recognize the structures that we have of land ownership that would allow for them to take part in these schemes. So I'd summarize that so that I allow you to move into the next question and we don't take so much time over the same question, because my colleagues have also contributed over the same.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Patita, for that. So it's now clear that there are huge potentials in East Africa, particularly, and I think that's the same for the wider Africa landscapes. The huge potential for increasing the supply of credits, and I think that's part of the role of groups like the Africa Carbon Market Initiative. It's also to grow the potential. But then without supply, you do not have the credits. So I want to take us now to the favorite topic of the challenges. You see, a carbon project, because I'm also involved directly, my organization, directly in developing carbon projects from what we call T equals to 0, which is from scratch. And some of the challenges are that, like you rightly pointed out and others have pointed out, you have fragmentation of land. Now, investors need scale. In fact, investors we've worked with have said they need a minimum of 80,000 acres to 100,000 to even consider investing, because obviously of the early phase costs. It basically costs more or less the same to do the pre-feasibility, GIS mapping, and all the soil testing costs, for example, for 5,000 acres as it will cost for 20,000 acres. So being business people, carbon investors prefer scale because then it assures them better return on investment. That's the reality. Added to that, so many other issues, including lack of clarity on policy. You see many countries in Africa coming up with what I call knee-jerk policy reactions to the carbon market. Tanzania came up with something sometime that said investors had to pay like 1 or 10% upfront, which is not feasible because even at that phase, the investor is not sure how much they would derive from their investment, and to ask them to pay upfront, it's a bit tricky. Zimbabwe said they want 60% of carbon revenues. So there are so many discordant policy environment, and there are many others. So could you please highlight some of the challenges that we are facing in the Africa carbon market, particularly from the community perspective or landowner perspective also? So
a very interesting scenario, I think, for the case and the space where I work in, which is the blue carbon. It's that, for instance, here the ownership of all mangrove forest is not by any individual, but it's rather under the government. And there's like various different policies and regulations that are cross-cutting and making it very complex to understand exactly which one to follow. And then there were like efforts to set up like the national carbon trading guidelines, but somehow it totally overlooked the benefits of the community. So for instance, out of the benefit sharing here in Tanzania, 61% goes to the managing authority, which is a government entity, and then the rest is what is being distributed between the investor and the community, which is also not making any sense in terms of like for the investor, but also for the community even to pull in. But also just clarity around, what goes to the managing authority, how is it being used, and is it also contributing back anything to the community? That clarity is also completely missing. So most of the people who are championing community-based carbon credits schemes are usually non-profit organizations, and they are in position to bring the communities together, support the communities in terms of like understanding schemes that they could potentially work on and develop projects. But then it becomes a limiting barrier, because one among the responsibility that comes to the NGOs is to make sure that there's a commercial partner who is willing to take less benefits, which are also not like clearly in terms of like returns that they will potentially make. So at the end of the day, what is typically happening is that there's a total barrier for community-based carbon credit schemes for the case of mangroves in the space. So most of like actors are failing to execute these projects to get them to the verification schemes and the community to start benefiting. But the good thing is that there's already conversations that are happening between different actors in the value chain to see ways into which that could be spaced to allow benefits for the communities to go, and these community-driven projects are able to generate some good revenue for the community. So to conclude around that, it's that the efforts to first build awareness for the communities, for them to understand what are we talking about. It's very important, because you would go with schemes and the communities completely don't understand, what is carbon credit, how can you sell something that you cannot touch, and that awareness is very important, because without that, then you will be talking to people that completely don't understand what you're trying to sell. Yeah. Thank you.
Michael, if I can just
go ahead. I was
Jerry.
gonna ask you to look at the ASAL, the arid semi-arid region in particular, if it's similar challenges or are there particularly unique challenges in the areas you work on?
Let me limit it to two, one of them being elite capture, and the other one is, I would say, lack of capacity by most stakeholders in the sector. Let me start by lack of capacity. Apart from the carbon developers, the field does not have sufficient experts who would engage communities, would engage government. And this has been left to carbon developers whose would be probably their strength would be the technology and would be the marketing, the other aspects of the project cycle that would allow the product to be sold. But the one challenge is the lack of awareness, because this has been left to the carbon developer, and this takes a lot of time. And by the time the community is beginning to understand what this is all about, you began by asking someone to define or to give us a brief overview of what carbon is all about. If you look at most African languages, we do not have the word carbon. So translating that to something that someone can actually converse sounds more of a very abstract thing. So that of awareness needs to be actually driven by our government so that this doesn't become a carbon developer responsibility. Because then I have an interest. This has got to be an agenda driven by government, is an asset they want to derive revenue and income from. So they ought to invest in educating the populace about carbon credits and how they can benefit from them. The second one is elite capture. Being that we are mostly working with, even if it's the educated communities, as I said, carbon is a very abstract and a technical subject. You find few amongst the leaders who mostly are in structures of governance and also represent the community in terms of land ownership. And because most of the projects that have been ongoing in Africa, or mostly in these communities, have been through this structure, then this has led to communities not really benefiting directly, and strategies to see how to benefit communities directly by transferring either these finances to the communities that are actually sequestering the carbon is becoming a challenge. The political leaders, the community leaders are still at the helm of decision making, making it difficult for the penetration and especially of the benefits directly going to those communities that are actually doing the job. The government is making it difficult by, as you said, knee-jerk policies that are not really solving the problem. Government in Kenya, for example, released their carbon regulations about 3 weeks ago. One of the challenges that they have is the benefit sharing mechanism. The government wants to take 25% of the revenue, but the government is not telling us very clearly what is their role. You want to take away the revenue, but what is your role as a government so that we can clearly see why is that this was allocated to you? If the carbon developer is going to take, in our case, we were actually going to take much more less. The government is giving us much more. But those roles, responsibilities against what each partner is making and what each entity is going to benefit from is not very clear. So that is overlapping, and communities continue to be marginalized further. And this is what will make carbon projects in future just become the schemes where it's only there are few people within society who are benefiting from it. So if those few issues would be addressed at policy level and even at a local level for engagement of more partners at a grassroots level to allow for that information to flow freely, I think those would be things that would allow communities to benefit from what they do every day, which is carbon sequestration, and also for them to understand that this is not a government-driven project, but rather it's a partnership between communities, and they're actually co-proponents with the carbon developer. The government has a role, yes, but it is their resource, and therefore they are accruing benefits, and they are actually making income from their own resources and assets that they own.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Patita. Very well put. Zipporah?
Michael, sorry, if I could just jump in here very quickly, sorry to interrupt. Perhaps after Zipporah's answer, we could head to, there's quite a few questions in the chat from the audience,
I was gonna go to the audience. Yes,
okay,
that's
fantastic.
what I wanted to do. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Carry on.
Zipporah, yeah.
Thank you, Michael. I'll touch on two aspects. One, Patita has talked about, and I think also Jerry mentioned a few aspects that I had in mind and what I've experienced as a carbon project developer. So one of it is that issue of transparency. we found that in East Africa particularly, we have issue between now the government, who are the key policymakers, and now the communities who rely on the government to make decisions for them. And that issue of who plays which role in what aspect for him to be able to actually get the amount of or the percentage that has been put in the benefit sharing mechanism. So that is the biggest issue. Communities always feel like, okay, we don't have control over it, and something that you do not have control over it, the interest to be involved in actually goes down. So that is an issue that needs to be addressed. And the other thing was on the institutional capacity. Yes, we have all these frameworks, and then the issue is they're very, like, somehow to a normal community person, it's a very complicated kind of structural plan or outlay on how to develop this carbon program. And at each stage, there is some specific amount that have been put in place that requires the carbon developer to actually pay for it. And this, in a nutshell, it scares the investors who want to actually do something about the community, but then the procedures that are involved are too long. And this somehow doesn't motivate people to actually invest in such projects. And again, the other issue on the government part is on delay on responding to issues. So you find that you have demonstrated or showed interest that I have this community that I want to work with, but then before you get a response, it might take 3 or 4 months. And you see, when you are developing a project under a specific standard, we always go with the timelines. So once one party delays in doing their part of the job, it delays the whole activity, the whole procedure. And that's why you find that a carbon project that's supposed to take, let's say, less than 2 years for it to go through the whole circle and be registered, it takes more than that because of the delay of one party. We have issues, okay, with the auditors, but the government plays a very key role, especially in offering the permits that are required for the communities to do what is required from their side. But then there is so much delay when it comes to their role in doing what is required. And another thing was on some tenor systems. So it's not really clear on who should be the legal owner of the carbon rights. Yeah, it's mentioned in the different standards that communities should get a better share of what is the outcome from the credit should be. But then now, the tenor system should be clearly outlined, like who owns the carbon rights, and for the roles they play in the development of this project, what percent should go to each, rather than just saying this percent should go to the government, this percent. We should have a clear outline of the roles and responsibilities for each and every stakeholder involved in that specific project. So that's a challenge that, if not addressed, when it comes to registration of a project, it becomes a challenge that causes a lot of delays. And another thing I've also experienced is that we tell people we want to have this carbon program, but we don't offer alternatives. So there is need for capacity building from grassroots level, even to the government. They need to have a very well laid out structure on how they're gonna make this supply increase, or how they're gonna make or execute a fruitful carbon program. And that starts with letting people understand the concept of carbon. And then these other co-benefit values should also be explained to them, that apart from just developing a carbon program and getting credit, there are other benefits that comes with the program, i.e. we can train these communities on different aspects like alternative incomes apart from trees. And also on the scale of the project, many questions that I've been getting from the communities that we have this small land and you are telling us not to plant crops, you want us to plant trees, and we are used to annual leaves, and now we have to wait like up to 5 years. So there is a need to also let them understand that apart from this, we can also have these alternative ways of earning income. Because again, the key point here is climate action. So that those are some of the challenges that are existing, and if they are well addressed, then I think there is a better chance of having increased supply of carbon credits. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zipporah, and other members of the panel. I think the last few minutes that we have, let's take questions from the audience that have been waiting patiently. So, Ciela,
Michael, sorry, just to jump in here. Yeah, just to say that obviously we don't have that much time left, so we'll get through as many questions in the chat as we can, but the questions in the chat will be sent to the speakers and we can relay the answers afterwards if your question doesn't get answered.
Okay, I'm not seeing the question, so I would like you to facilitate that. So just pick up any question, throw it to any of the members openly, so each of the panel members can take a very few minutes to respond if they want to.
Okay, no problem at all. So there's a question from Wiseman and Glovu in the chat. Can the carbon markets be useful in enhancing the sustainability of game meat production in countries like TZ where the industry is already legalized? I'll just throw that to anyone who wants to jump in on that.
I personally don't have a lot of experience around game meat production.
Okay, no problem. Perhaps that's something that we can put to someone else. Okay, so next question in the chat. So chat from Frank Voorhees. Interesting to hear that one barrier might be a mismatch between government regulations and international voluntary carbon standards. How could this barrier be addressed?
Yeah, so because now we have these national frameworks, but we do not have these standards that can do actually the actual calculation of this greenhouse accounting methodology. So I think it's high time these states, before they come up with their own frameworks, they should have a roundtable with this international organization, like, or let's say Vera, or those people responsible for developing this standard, to just understand and maybe have a discussion on how to go about it. Because if we do not consult, what we develop might not align with what is required, and that now creates a very big issue in terms of supply or in terms of development of this carbon program. So there is need for proper dialogue between the countries developing their own frameworks and the international standard that will be used for the actualization of the project. So they have to sit down and agree on what to go for and what not to go for. Yes, thank you.
Maybe just to add on to what Zipporah has said, I think what the international, what can happen at international level is to make it very clear as what percentage of the revenue or income should go to the rightful owner of the asset. For example, if you look at what happens when you're enlisting a project, you've got to clearly indicate that you have consent and that the asset owners or the rights owners have assigned that right to you to sell their carbon, and it's very clearly indicated who the landowner is, and you have to indicate that you have permission or you have the right to trade on their behalf. I think the standards can go ahead by protecting the landowners by ensuring certain percentage of the income goes directly to the landowners, to the rightful owner of that particular asset. So I think if that can go a step further by ensuring that they add these requirements to the list of what a carbon developer should produce, this will protect the communities, because the government is proposing regulations and enforcing regulations, but not clearly showing how is it that they're supporting these landowners to sequester more carbon, to protect these areas. And if the government continues to do that, then it will be counterproductive. It will be that the government wants to make money from this, but not clearly also indicating what their role is in ensuring that these landowners keep that land open, continue to keep within the requirements of what they need to do to sequester that carbon over the 15-year, 10-year agreements, 20-year agreements. The government is taking a revenue share, but not clearly indicating what its role is in terms of monitoring, in terms of protecting that land from further destruction. So I think if that can come from the standardized or for the international level, so that the rights of these communities are protected at that level, just as it is with FPIC requirements and the rest. That to me sounds like something that we will keep off any other stakeholders from engaging or from taking away what rightfully belongs to communities.
Great, thank you so much for that. In the interest of time, we are really on the hour now, but I think Mr. Alex Kasingo has had his hand up for a while, and Alex will actually be a panelist on next week's discussion. So if we could take your question, Alex, very briefly, and then we'll close out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was really not a question. I wanted to respond to, can the carbon markets be useful in enhancing sustainability of game meat production? I think this is yes, because carbon markets are helping to at least conserve the natural habitats, the woodlands, forests, and the grasslands, which are the same habitat that we require to raise the wild animals for game meat productivity. So if this one is coupled with the game meat production, then it can facilitate one another, and it can be attractive for landowners, particularly at community-based conservation organizations, but also at private capacity to engage in wild meat productivity, at the same time making money from carbon credits. So I think these two things can go together. Thank you.
I like that.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. Thanks for jumping in. Jerry, did you have a quick comment on that? I see that you're unmuted.
No, I totally understood what Alex said, so I'm happy to understand.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks again, Alex. Okay, so we are on the hour. As I mentioned earlier, we'll get the questions in the chat shared with the speakers and hope we can relay those answers. And Michael, I'll hand back over to you to close out the session. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Sila. And thank you to our panelists who have taken time and have done justice to all the questions thrown out. And also a big thank you to our attendants, the audience. Sincere apologies that as these things go all the time, there's never seems to be enough time to devote to this. I'm sure lots of people have burning questions, but like Sarah said, keep on following on the site, and the questions will be packaged and sent to the panelists, and their responses will be captured and put on the site as well. Thanks so much. It's been a very good, engaging discussion. I've truly enjoyed it. So thank you, and keep on following the other dialogues going on. There are about 4 different dialogues going on. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your week.